this is the second video on the use of conditionals in MATLAB. This particular video is going to focus on the while statement. So earlier on we established that using script files for sequences of operations is useful, and we've also mentioned that sometimes the computations that we want to do depend upon the outcome of a previous computation. That is, our decisions are conditional, or the code we want to write is conditional. The previous resource then looked at the conditional if statements within MATLAB. Here we're going to extend that to look at while statements. And again we make the point that the coding is largely intuitive. If you understand how humans make decisions and how they phrase decisions, you'll find that the way MATLAB sets up the code is very similar. So typical conditional operations we're interested in are things like equality comparisons. Are two numbers the same? Is one number bigger than another number? Logical variables, yes and no. Logical operations such as and or, text comparisons, and so on. Here we're going to look at how the while statement uses some of these conditions. So, key concepts. The main idea is to continue doing something while a particular condition holds. So that's why it's called a while statement, because it's while something is true, keep doing what you're doing. So I've got two examples here. So you'll see while the temperature remains below 0, then the heating should stay on. So you can see what you want to do depends upon a previous condition. Here the condition is the temperature is below 0. As long as it's below 0, keep doing something. Here, keep leaving the heating on. Similar example, while my bank balance is above 10k, so you're probably quite well off, keep spending on luxuries. You've got lots of money, you can keep spending on luxuries. But again you'll see that the action only continues while a particular condition holds. In code, a while statement is constructed using a very similar interpretation. So here's how we write the code in structure. This particular box here illustrates the key structure. So you'll see what we do. We say while a particular condition is true, then do the code that is between the while statement and the end statement. Now this basically repeats. So check whether the condition is true. If it's true, follow the code. When you get to the end statement, you go back to the while statement and say, is the condition still true? If the condition is still true, run the code again. Get to the end statement and then go back to the while. Is the condition true? If it's still true, run the code again. So you can see, in essence, you end up here with a loop. So the code is performed repeatedly while the condition remains true. And the program only goes to this bit of code, the following code, once the condition fails. So if at some point the condition becomes false, as soon as the condition is false, then you jump down to the following code and carry on. Now here's a warning. If the condition is always true, the program will get locked into this while loop and it will keep going round and round and round and it will never exit. And this is what you would call a coding flaw, and the programmer has to make sure this cannot happen. So how do we avoid an infinite loop? In essence, the code which you've got between the while and the end statement must impact on the condition. So if the condition is initially true, then the code must be able to change that condition so that the next time you check it, it could potentially be false. If that code can have no impact on the condition, then if the condition is true, it's always going to be true and you'll be in an infinite loop. So the key point is the code inside the loop must affect the condition so that at some point the condition can move from true to false. So when you're programming, that's something that you must check very carefully. The code between the while and the end must affect the condition. So we've got some demonstrations here. We'll give a quick description of the code and then we'll show them live. So here you'll see the while statement here, and the while statement says while the value a is bigger than 5, and then we've got the end statement down here. So while it's bigger than 5, we're going to do these 3 commands. Basically, we'll do an operation on A, and then we'll display the answer. Now you'll notice here this key point. Okay, the code inside the loop is affecting the condition. That is, A is being changed, which means that at some point this condition can fail. It can turn to false. So there's my key bit. I've got to make sure that the code inside is affecting this variable A, so it's therefore affecting that condition. We'll demonstrate this on MATLAB in a minute. Here's a different example, MATLAB Basics 8F. So you'll see here our condition is while this variable cont is not 0. We're going to initialize it as 1, so we're saying while it's not 0, then you can do all the code which is in here. Now again, we need to make sure that this condition is affected in the loop, and so what do you notice? This particular line here allows the variable cont to be changed. So we can therefore force an exit to the loop. So let's have a look. We'll go to MATLAB. We'll look at these 2 pieces of code. So here we've got the basics 8G. You can see I'm going to initialize A at 24, B at 4, and there's my while loop. So if I run this, let's see what happens. So you can see initially A is 24. Then we get to this line 8, and it's changed, and you can see here the new value is 14. That's still bigger than 5, so we go through the while loop again. When we go through it again, A is updated to 9. That's still bigger than 5, so we go through the while loop again. A goes to 6.5, still bigger than 5. A goes to 5.25, still bigger than 5. A goes to 4.6, and you'll see that once A gets to 4.6, this while condition now fails. A is no longer the bigger than 5, and therefore we go past this end and continue with the code. Here there is none. Okay, 8F, so you see this is a similar code. This one's based on this cont variable being not 0. So let's run it, and you can see at the moment it's just asking a question. Enter your choice, 0 to stop, 1 to continue. So if I put 1 in, then it continues because I've said cont is 1, and because cont is 1, we get back to this while loop. Cont is still non-zero, so we go back round and round. If I put something like 2, it will continue. 3, it will continue, but if I enter 0, you'll see it says I have chosen to stop. So, summary. We've demonstrated the use of while statements in MATLAB. Now here we've primarily focused on numerical comparisons in the while statement. It is possible to compare strings and matrices, but you do need to be careful there, and I wouldn't recommend it in general. And you'll see the core principle of a while loop is the code is implemented repeatedly. You go round and round the loop while the conditional statement continues to be satisfied, so you have to make sure that that conditional statement can be changed somewhere within the loop.